So now you've got a huge push for connectivity. You have a huge push for increasing processing power. You have huge amounts of storage. You have huge big data, the ability to analyze this. Now you're going to have the Internet of Things. On top of it, you've got neuroscience that's understanding more and more about how the brain functions. But the people that are in control, the people that like to be in control, the people that, have a view of most humans as a problem rather than potential, will be able to use all of these tools to control behaviors. And not only that, you have incredible geniuses that are great at marketing, like Steve Jobs, that people will be basically enslaving themselves. I'm talking about AT&T and IBM and Facebook and all these guys that are already censoring what you look at. They're already looking at every search that you do so that they can customize their searches. And they're using AI right now to figure out how people behave and to sell more stuff. And then, and you got the big push on 5G and you got the big push on Internet of Things. And it's just corporations, the military, DARPA, everybody is pushing for these capabilities. The point is, who's in control of them? We don't even know our governance system. We don't know the governance system in the world. We don't know who's really the final decision makers and pushing for the decisions. We know that there's pedophilia rings. We know that there are control files on lots of people. But is it the intelligence agencies that ultimately have the say? Because we're not a democracy anymore. We're moving rapidly towards fascism. So all I'm saying is you have people that will be developing these tools, that will have the money to control these tools with the capability to shape behavior the way they want. There won't be a war because they'll be able to make it so people will just accept it or die. The ones that are real troublemakers, they will just kill them. Who's alarmed now that basically generations of kids are spending most of their lives in front of a cell phone, looking at it, texting. They'll be at a dinner table and won't even be having a conversation except through this phone. That's a form of AI taking over. See? How do they react that, a obviously false flag operation in 9/11 created a security state that enabled a level of surveillance that our forefathers warned us would lead to slavery? Okay, well, who's reacting? Okay, there's a small portion of people that are reacting to that. But when you take a look at the amount of infringement of our rights, our constitutional rights that's happened since 2001, never mind before, it's like it's happening. And people are enabling it. And if you had to give up your cell phone in order to protect the Constitution, what do you think the answer would be? Right. So AI is here. And see, I also believe with the 20-something trillion dollars that we know has been misplaced, just from the Department of Defense and HUD, where did that money go? How was it used? And, when you talk to somebody like Bezos, he was asked, the 90 or $100 billion you're worth now, where does that money go? And he said, well, there's only one place I could ever rationalize putting it, and that's for space. So I believe that AI and mapping of the brain and lots of other things have been done already by the black organizations, in this world, that basically have used drugs, have used financial fraud and other things to take that money. It's been described almost as a breakaway civilization. That's why when the guy that's head of Lockheed 30 years ago said, we have the technology to bring E.T. home, was he just a lying, exaggerating, craphead? No. So all I'm saying is, along the way, there's going to be somebody controlling these technologies that are interested in control. They're not interested in optimizing the potential of human beings. You keep talking about IQ, intelligence quotient. Well, what is the emotional quotient for these people? What's the spiritual quotient, okay? Because there's all other types of intelligence. There's other types of ways that we look at things. And believe me, the black world understands this because they probably studied it more than anybody. Okay? They'll poo-poo the spiritual. They'll poo-poo extrasensory perception to you. They'll poo-poo all this stuff to your face, right? Which is part of the op. They've studied it more than anybody, and they utilize it. So that's my concern, that these very, very powerful tools are already in the hands of people that are interested in centralizing wealth and centralizing power, who look at themselves as elites, who look at themselves as people that know better, that have a plan. They have a plan for what humans should be. And, obviously Kurzweil has a plan, the head of R&D for Google. Right? He has a plan, and all his transhumanist buddies. And it involves certainly robotics and AI and all this stuff. They have a plan. They have a plan where basically human beings are no longer. The way out is asymmetrical, and the way out is an awareness, a consciousness that is not measured by IQ. It's an awareness that goes to the very foundation of what humans are and what life's about. And we've got to anchor ourselves in that as a way out, because I do not believe that all of life can be digitized. Life on this planet can be digitized, but there will be a whole component of life and the potential that's in life that will be absolutely destroyed. And I see all these technologies, because they are so powerful computationally, and all the features and all the things they can do and how fast they can do it and the whiz-bang and everything else, as tremendously impoverishing in another way. So with every technology, there is, great promise, and there's great danger. People are celebrating the internet, because it brings the world of knowledge. With a Google search engine, it's astonishing what you can search and get in a fraction of a second. Astonishing. It is the greatest surveillance tool ever invented, if you could invent one. It's the most invasive tool on everybody's freedom. But not only that, they're using it to come up with brain profiles of people. Psychological profiles, behavioral profiles of people that are on the keyboards. And now I can distinguish who's there just by the way that they're doing the keyboard. And so at some point you have to understand what the consequences are of embracing these technologies, and then you've got to make a very simple choice. Are you going to be a free human being, or are you going to be a slave? Because that's where this is leading. And it's a fundamental question that humanity has always faced. And I don't care if it's a slavery that comes through religion, comes through political systems, or anything else. That's the fundamental question that faces humanity. Do you want to live a free and inspired life, which is the mission of Solari, as defined by Catherine Austin Fitts, or do you want to be a slave? Are we going to be a species of force, or are we going to be a species of creative thought? I mean, I know the way that I solve problems through intuition and many, many other ways, and how you put things together, and you have a sense and a gut feel, and all the neurons that are in your digestive tract and all this. We don't have any sense at all about how the simplest systems on this planet work. From a systems perspective, we have no idea. It's primitive, but yet we have the audacity to think that we're going to build this, super intelligent shit, that's going to solve all of our problems. Why don't you first get an understanding of how soil works? Okay, we have a very, very limited. Why don't you get an understanding of what water really is, and the astonishing capabilities, that water has in terms of even memory. right? Is it just by chance that is the main substance that this planet runs on? And on and on. Look at any living system, okay? But we're going to go geoengineer climate and then blame it on climate change, okay? Because of CO2, while we spent for the last 20 years, we've been chemtrailing the entire globe and using HARP to change weather. Now we're finding out about this stuff. People have been talking about it for 20 years, but now finally, it's obviously totally clear. There's huge amounts of evidence now to know that. Okay, so what else have we been geoengineering and screwing up that requires, a solution from the engineers that they engineered in the first place? So the biggest question I have is, just because you can do it, should you? I want to have the opportunity as a human being to experience it, not as a cyborg, not as a AI-dominated creature, as a human being. Because our potential is beyond, way beyond what it's been described as. It's not described by IQ. It's not described by how many pounds you can lift. Deadlift. It's not described by how much money you got. It's not, there's a whole other way that we connect with the universe, if we're allowed to, if you develop the skill to do it. That is what's most fascinating to me. And I don't feel puny when I look at the universe that has, supposedly now 2 trillion galaxies, with hundreds of billions of stars in each one. With, not every star will have a planetary system, but there's plenty of them, okay? So there absolutely is other life in the universe. Is there other human life? Who knows? Are we an engineered planet? There's arguments for that. How did the moon end up being the way that it is? And this, and all the things that are remarkable about the moon just being where it is and how it operates. Without it, you wouldn't have life on this planet. Is that basically an artificial satellite that was put here by, a greater intelligence? Are we basically an experiment? Has there been intervention in our genetics through the ages, through something else? Are we a subsidiary of a larger galactic business, that is AI run? The grays that everybody talks about, are they basically a merge of biology and AI that's controlled by a much smarter thing? So yeah, I'm open to all this. None of that scares me because I'm secure in being a human and knowing what that potential is. And I feel a connectivity to something out there. I don't feel that I'm just planet-bound in terms of mind. And in terms of what people describe as spiritual, I don't use that term very much. But I respect what they say because we don't have another term to describe a lot of this stuff. So we have connectivity that is non-digital, it's non-wireless, it's non-5G, because all that stuff interferes with the connectedness that we have, right? It interferes with human resonances, it interferes with some of the foundational electromagnetic stuff that promotes life. And I don't think that's a coincidence, okay? I think that's engineered. I think it's engineered for control. I don't want to be controlled by the people that are in control. I want to be free. You want to be free. Fundamentally, can an intellect be irrational and illogical? Well, that's interesting, because humans can. And, maybe Dostoevsky has something to teach us about that. And we look at that as, always bad. Is it? Because how many things have been described as irrational, that ended up being very powerful, like intuition. Intuition's irrational to a scientist, right? Until they come up with some model for it that fits in with some math or physics or something else. But it was there before you figured out your math and physics, and what makes you think that your math and physics describes what that is? No, your math and physics describes a mathematical and physical explanation of what it is. See? It's self-limiting. Just like the laws of thermodynamics, These are laws that human beings basically figured out by doing pressure tests and temperature tests in a closed container on the planet Earth, and this is what's going to basically rule. It's a law that humans came up with the entire universe. How's that for arrogance? Right? But ever come up with anything that contradicts the 3 laws of thermodynamics, and a physicist would tell you it's impossible because it violates the laws of thermodynamics. Of course, it may not violate it on a universal scale. He doesn't even know that. But it's just very interesting. We come up with these laws for the universe by doing these incredibly, primitive experiments. And then we go, we're so smart. Because we figured out the speed of light, which is a constant, which of course isn't a constant. But nobody looks at the anomalies in the speed of light and goes, hey, you guys talked about the speed of light being a constant, and it's always this, and it's the same everywhere. And that's the foundation for all of our physics, the general relativity and everything. But it's not. It varies in speed. But what I would say is this. There is a push towards productivity. And middle management is being displaced. Now, by middle management, I mean guys like John Gotti. When the CIA finally has their act together when it comes to drugs and assassinations, and you have AI and other things that can basically target people incredibly more efficiently than the way Catherine was targeted 15 years ago by the government in 16 different agencies that cost the taxpayers $45 million and cost her probably $10 million, never mind 30,000 hours of her time. You can do that now much more efficiently. So you don't need a lot of these other people in the middle. And people think that, it couldn't happen to me. But I see huge swaths of people that are not needed anymore by the machine. Okay? And that's a major problem for the Earth. And that's the other reason why there's experiments now in assured income, like they're doing up in Norway and so on. Not only because so much money's been stolen, and pension funds are targets, and Social Security, basically that money's been used. There is a bond there that represents the goodwill and faith of the United States. They took the cash to run the government with, So there is huge amounts of resources that have been concentrated, and there is a lack of need because of technology for a lot of jobs that are being done by people right now. So, if you get enough people on enough drugs, talking about pharmaceuticals, and even at a very early age, and you get enough GMOs in their diet, and you get enough autistic kids because of vaccines and other things, you get enough of basically the population debilitated. They're not going to be able to fight. You're taking the fight out of the resistance to a large extent. And just think about the amounts of scenarios you can run. Even the supercomputers we have now, they got that $2 billion data center that the NSA built just to collect all the data in the world and keep collecting it for however they want to use it in the future, however they want AI to look at it. Just think about the amount of scenarios that have been run by the people with these computers whose job it is, and they get paid in these think tanks to do scenarios. Everything has been scenarioed. So I look at a level of control that is much beyond what most people understand exists. They still think to a large extent that their vote counts, that their representative is actually representing their interests, that the President of the United States has real power. We're living in this whole state of illusion about where the power, where the money, where the decisions, where the technology is being controlled from, and how robust it is. So I think we're much further along on this AI thing It has the ability to affect human behavior across the globe. And we've got the connectivity through our cell phones, through our wireless networks, through all these other things that are being put, through the astonishing amounts of satellites that are being put up, hundreds at a time now. These little softball-sized satellites that could do the work of gigantic satellites 20 years ago. It's a prison planet. And to me, Catherine is one of the most important people in terms of expressing how our freedom and how our ability to live a free and inspired life is in jeopardy. She has it figured out as well as anybody that I know. And basically because she understands the money, she always goes back to the money, and it's got to make sense in terms of the money. And that has worked very well for her in terms of concentrating on money and money flows and psychology around money and the power that money brings and the whole power structures involved with money.